Hi, it's Penny here, and today we're going to be putting together my TBR for the month of February. In February, I'm just going to be doing all my kind of normal things. We are also going house hunting at the end of January, start of February, so there's always a chance that that's going to disrupt every plan that I have, except for the moving plan. It would progress that one, right? Anyway, we're going to make some reading plans anyway, even though, who knows? Plans don't always work out, right? As usual, I'm going to be doing the thing where I have a physical book and an audiobook for every week of the month. There's 4 weeks that we're going to be planning for February. I'm also going to be putting in a bunch of series that I'm trying to finish off, but I'm also going to be using my TBR machine website that I made that spits out random reading prompts. I'm going to be using that to pick 2 books off my TBR shelf. It's not really a shelf now, it's a tiny pile of 4 books. I'm getting very close to TBR 0 and I am kind of hoping to get it done by the end of March. My plan is we're going to pick 2 for February and I guess the other 2 will be in March. But we're going to use the TBR machine to pick which ones. So let's pick both the prompts and then see what we can do, because I've got so few books now it's really hard to match the prompts to the books. But hopefully it'll work out. So the first prompt will be read a science fiction book. So I think the only science fiction I have on the pile is A Game Changer by Neil Shusterman. This is one where this guy gets hit on the head, I think, and that starts pushing him through into different realities. I think that's something along the lines of what it's about. The bonus is this should be a pretty quick read. So that's going to be the first one. Goodness, I hope the second prompt is going to be any good. So the second prompt, will we get as lucky? The prompt is read a horror book. Now I'm pretty sure that none of these are classically horror, but maybe we could pick the one that's the most horror-ish. Actually, maybe I'll look them all up on Goodreads and see if any of them are tagged with horror, even though I don't think so. Okay, so one of them actually was tagged with horror, even though I don't really think it's horror, and that is Masters of Death by Oliver Blake. So this is the one I'll be reading. This one is about a vampire who's a real estate agent trying to sell a house that's haunted, and so he asks the godson of death for help with this haunted house, the godson of death being a medium who can talk to ghosts. I really like Oliver Blake as a person, I always say, and I have also liked some of her stuff. Not necessarily loved it, but I do like some of the ways she deals with themes, and I just find a lot of her stuff is quite unique, so I'm hoping to really like that. So these will be the 2 off my TBR, and I guess these ones are going to be for March. Both of these have bone in the title, so we're going for that kind of theme in March. Alright, then let's fill out the rest of my monthly reading plan. Firstly, in the first week, I'm going to finish off the Argosy series by Sebastian de Castell. I actually thought this was a duology, but this is going to be the 3rd book in the series, and I think the final book. Does it actually say the final book, or did I make that up? You know, it doesn't say it's the final book. And the original series that this is kind of a spin-off of, or like a prequel series for, was a 7-book series, so who really knows. But this is a spin-off of the Spellslinger series. In the spin-offs we're following Farius Parfax, who has a very traumatic childhood that we learnt a lot about in the first book, and then gets involved with these Argosy, who are kind of like traveling nomads with like a very particular philosophy on life, and also like these magical decks of cards. In this world where there's like all sorts of different magic and like a lot of conflict, I guess, between the different groups of magical people. To be honest, I probably should reread the 1st and 2nd books before picking up this 3rd one, because I think I've forgotten a lot about them, but also I don't have time for that and I want to read it. So I'm just going to pick up the 3rd book and hopefully I'll remember once we get into it. These books are generally written in a really fun way, but there is also a lot of darkness. Also, like every single book in the original series and the spin-off series so far has had like a new kind of magic introduced in the book, so I'm really interested to see what it's going to be in this one, because I thought the 2nd book was amazing, so fingers crossed for this one. Then in the 2nd week, I'm going to be finishing off the Jaren series by Kate Elliott. So this is a really weird series where humans go into space and discover there's this whole big galactic empire out there already, and they're basically willing to absorb us into their empire. But this one rebel leader tries to rebel. It doesn't go so well, but because their culture is so different, he ends up in a really powerful position. And I always feel like I need to give that context for the story. However, most of the story is set on this other planet where the people there don't know anything about what's going on in space. This rebel leader's younger sister, who is his heir, kind of ends up stuck on this planet, and there's a romance thing going on. In the second book, we have this other theatre troupe come, and there's just so much going on in this world on its own in terms of this nomadic tribe trying to take over the country that they live in, but also a lot of the Galactic Empire politics are influencing their world, and the events happening on this world are influencing that. So there's a lot of really interesting like sci-fi elements to the story, but also in a lot of ways it's just this romance between people from a modern culture and people from this nomadic tribe. There's so many different characters though, and in terms of the relationships, things are very complex, and there's a lot set up for the fourth and final book, and I really have no idea what direction it's going to go in. So that will be exciting. Then in the third week, I'm going to try and do my Alcatraz week. So one of the other series that I want to finish off is Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians by Brandon Sanderson. In this one, I actually do want to reread the first book, which I enjoyed. I am a little bit skeptical because I don't tend to like Brandon Sanderson's sillier stuff, and this is like his middle grade series, all about this orphan boy who discovers this whole secret society or secret part of the world within our world that the librarians, the evil librarians, are hiding from us. So my plan is just to put aside a whole week for this and either be listening to the audiobooks or reading the books. I do know the books have some illustrations in them though, so I'm a little bit worried that I'll miss out on them if I'm reading the audiobooks. I also don't know if it's reasonable to expect myself to get through all 6 of these in 1 week, although they are middle grade books, so maybe. Anyway, that's what I'm going to try, but I also would say that if life plans interfere, this is the week that we're going to push back into March. And then the last week of February is going to be where I keep going with all my kind of ongoing series. So firstly, that means Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. So another Brandon Sanderson one. Why does he keep taking over my TBRs? It's my own fault. Anyway, I'm a little bit worried about this. So my plan is to read this in the last week of February and the first week of March. However, I know that Way of Kings took me 3 weeks, so probably that's going to ruin my March reading, but that's March's problem, not my problem right now. So this is the second book in the Stormlight Archives. I'm loving my reread of the series, or at least I love my reread of The Way of Kings. Hopefully I'm going to love this too. This is such an epic fantasy series that it's hard to talk about, but basically we've got this world where there is this big war going on that was a retaliation of an assassination of the king, and at the same time there's kind of a bigger cycle of epic events happening which is now causing kind of these magical abilities to come back into the world. So we're following a bunch of different characters who are discovering the magic of this world, as well as discovering a lot more about the history of the world and the real cause of the war that's going on. Anyway, hopefully I can keep going with my reread of this series and Mistborn Era 2 this year, and that means that by the end of the year I'll be able to read the new release that's coming out. But we'll see, because these books are big and chunky and they take me a while to get through. Then my audiobook for the last week is going to be Sharp Ends by Joe Abercrombie. So this is the 3rd standalone novel in the First Law World, or the 6th book in the First Law World series. Basically the last standalone before we get into the final trilogy, which I am super excited about. I don't know how I feel about Sharp Ends. I think it's just going to be a bunch of short stories giving little tales in the world and some backstories of the characters we love. The series is really like grim dark, but also really humorous, and I really think that this book is going to build out that tapestry of the world that he's got, where you just know so many of the characters so well, and like all the different parts of these empires that are at war with each other. You know so much about the different motivations of the individuals involved, and so I think that's going to set up the final trilogy to be amazing. But I don't tend to like short story anthologies as much. I do expect they'll all fit together a little bit, but I do think this is why I'm going to pick this one up on audiobook. I did have a lot of success with the audiobook for The Heroes, and also I think the end of Best Served Cold I listened to the audiobook. Did I? I can't remember. I think for the final trilogy I'll go back to reading them physically, but this one I'm going to do the audiobook just so that I don't get too stuck on any stories where, you know, like with short story anthologies, sometimes you won't like certain characters and then it's like a slog to get through. That's what I'm worried about, even though Joe Abercrombie is amazing at writing characters that you love, even though you hate them, even though they're making terrible decisions. So that's going to be my reading plans for the month of February. Will it work out? I don't know. I always say this whole concept of doing one physical book and one audiobook every week is a way to make a realistic reading plan. I still don't know if this is realistic because there's a lot of long books on this list. And as I said, I think I'm going to be busy with a lot of other non-reading stuff, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've got here and whether you think I'm going to like them, and let me know what you're excited to be reading in February. Also, do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.